Welcome back to Trading the Markets. Your eyes do not deceive you. It is I, Nico Brugge. Bijan is on vacation, so you are all stuck with me. Kris, welcome back from your travels. How was it?
Thank you. Yes, it was amazing. I had a lovely time in Canada. Got to meet tons of Real Vision members. Made really great connections with a number of them, and that will continue to talk going forward. So it's always nice to meet new friends. It's always nice to meet members of the larger Real Vision community. And of course, Canada was amazing. Everybody was so friendly and welcoming. Just stunning scenery. I mean, you just can't go wrong with Canada, I feel like. And I had a great time. So yeah, everything was awesome.
So lovely to hear that. In other news, we are finishing out our Ready, Set, Connect campaign, which closes at the end of the month. You can join the Connect tier where you get exclusive access to Kris Bullock's portfolios on crypto, as well as Joe Bland's on macro. You can go to realvision.com/ready, set, connect. Do it. You won't regret it. All right, Kris, I'm seeing green all over my feed today. So I'm feeling super optimistic. Let's see if that maintains itself through this conversation. But where did you want to start today?
So yeah, we're going to start with Bitcoin, of course, since kind of everything revolves around Bitcoin. It is green today. We are, I think, bouncing. We're having a bit of a reflexive bounce from a bit of an oversold condition, but I do think that's going to be a little short-lived. Unfortunately, I'm still calling for additional downside. I don't think it's anything to worry about. I talked about it much more in depth on our Monday show, but yeah, I think that. I called for downside on Monday. We got that downside. In fact, here was Monday. Big red. Monday was ugly for sure. We did actually come a little bit further down on Tuesday, but ultimately finished the day out green. This having a big wick to the downside is a good signal of kind of a reversal pattern, a swing low, if you will. And we've gone up and exceeded that now today, although it's a bit muted today. And so what I'm looking at, I think we do have a bounce back up into this sort of 115, 116 range in the cards. And this white line is a sort of just a gauge of what I thought the market might do. I drew this line back on August 20th, just kind of predicting what I figured would play out over the coming weeks. And it's not quite following that exactly, but I do still think that, yeah, we've got to bounce back up. And then I think we're going to come back down a little bit more, possibly into this 106, 108 range sometime in December. And that's also further supported by like this heat map right now, this liquidation heat map. Basically kind of saying the same thing. We've got a big pocket of liquidity up in this sort of 117, 118 range, which is right what I just showed on that previous chart. And then we've got another pocket down here at around 108. And I think, we're bouncing back to the upside in the moment. Market makers are going to sort of capture this liquidity and then likely bring it back down. Not a big deal in the long run. This is, again, what we're expecting. This is kind of just part of the cyclical nature of Bitcoin. I'm still very bullish long term. I still think that everything is in play, for Q4 and Q1, all good. But I just think that in the moment we're in for some, boring volatility that we all love, So I think based on that, I'm still just recommending patience. I think if you're a long-term holder, you shouldn't even be looking at charts right now. This is the kind of stuff that you don't need to bother yourself with. This is just the noise of the market. This is the short-term traders and the market makers just kind of doing their thing at the fringes, kind of making the price do the wobble, But outside of that, the longer term is just well and truly up and to the right. And so everything is fine. And this is all basically normal. So if you're a short-term trader, this is great. This is kind of where you can get in and sort of have some fun and play the swings. But if you're a long-term trader, again, just go outside and touch grass and don't look at this because it's just going to stress you out. It's just going to keep you up at night, and in the end, it's not going to matter. And so kind of to dig in a little bit further, what we're seeing, zoomed in a bit is right now the major, not Bitcoin, but the major, like the major alts, the mega cap alts, I guess, if you will, that's where the big rotation is at the moment. We're seeing things like Ethereum continues to look amazing. Like here, let me kind of dig into a few charts on this and just sort of show what I'm talking about. So we're seeing Ethereum, not even in a corrective phase at all. Like if you would look at Ethereum, you think, what are you talking about? Everything looks fine. The market looks awesome. Ethereum looks great. Solana quietly looking amazing, putting in higher highs and higher lows on the regular. Pretty much everything in the top 10 right now is kind of crushing it. I mean, just kind of continuing on that theme. If we look at some of these other top 10 ones, like ones you wouldn't expect, ones that people don't talk about, like hold on. I had this all dialed in here. Stuff like Link. Link is doing really well. Link is in a heavy uptrend. Tron also not in a corrective phase at all. BNB token looks great. BNB token just poked a new cycle high like last week. Even Doge, it's flat, but it's still like in a nice uptrend. Hyperliquid's another one that really caught my eye. Hyperliquid, if I'm not mistaken, is in price discovery. It is. So it dipped a little bit back down, but today set a new all-time high, Hyperliquid. Like the top 10 is where it's at right now. And so we're seeing that, and that's showing, I know I'm kind of bouncing all over, but what we're seeing and how that's sort of manifesting is Bitcoin dominance is tanking. As we know, Bitcoin dominance has peaked and is bottoming out. But at the same time, others' dominance is just sort of, it's kind of flat. It's not doing the exact correlation. It's not doing this upswing to the same degree that Bitcoin dominance is doing this downswing. And that's because others' dominance is basically everything outside the top 10. So none of those tokens, none of those charts that I just showed you are reflected in this equation. So that means we're in the phase of the rotation where the money comes out of Bitcoin and into the large cap alts like your Ethereum, like your Solana, like your BNB and XRP and Link and stuff like that. And then from there, it'll ultimately rotate out into this, the others, I guess, the rest of them. And so I think at that point, we'll start to see this chart run back up. But until we see that, we're not there yet. So we're sort of in that second phase of that rotation. And then finally, that's further illustrated by looking at like this bullmarketsupportband.com website. We can see how pretty much everything in the top 10 is green. I mean, really everything in the top 20 outside of a handful are green. So this is showing us that the highest market cap stuff is really outperforming the rest of the market. And then as we work our way further out into the 20 to 40 and 40 to 60 and so on, we can see a lot more red in here and a lot less green sort of peppered in throughout. And so this is showing us that right now, the biggest amount of strength in the crypto market is really in the top 20, I guess you could say. And then it starts to get a lot more selective after that. And so what I'm going to be paying attention to is when I'm going to be looking for the rest of these to kind of flip back green. And for this number, right now we've got 46 out of the top 100 in the green. Not too long ago, this number was up around 60 or 70, I feel like. And so I'm going to be looking for this number to kick back up into that region. And then I'll know that like we're really getting branched out and the money is starting to move back further out the risk curve into a more broader alt season. So that's what I'm seeing at the moment. But again, just everything's fine. Just be patient, ignore the charts and go outside, unless you want to trade. In that case, stare at the charts all day and be my guest, but that's not my jam.
On this note, Alfie Hollins in the Real Vision chat wants to know, would have thought what we'd be higher by now, having followed the liquidity narrative. Why so slow?
I mean, well, liquidity has kind of actually, if you look at liquidity here, I think I have it on this chart. So this is lined up. Let me line it up on the weekly. And this is without a lag. I've been actually enjoying looking at liquidity and Bitcoin without any kind of a offset at the moment, because we can see they're actually pretty well lined up. They've, since whatever, going back to March, it's been pretty well correlated. And if we look at it in this moment, we can see liquidity has had a bit of a wobble. Like it's actually, it's not correcting. It's having a sort of, I guess, short-term correction in a larger uptrend. But we can see that, price is a little bit extended to the downside, but actually it's following this wobble pretty spot on, really, I think. And so I think this is actually pretty accurate as far as what's going on right now. And I totally get what Raul and Julian are onto with the, with the sort of leading indicator with the 12-week offset, and there's absolute merit to that. But I think it's important to also look at it without an offset, because there's a lot of correlation to it, and I could go into a whole long dissertation about why zero correlation also makes a ton of sense. And
I
right now, I
see.
think we're seeing that.
I see you're a 12-week guy, not an 8-week. So you side with Julia, not Ral, on that great debate.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But in the moment, like I said, I think again, there's merit to zero offset because right now it's almost perfectly lined up. So.
And also, we haven't, we know, or we don't know, but it seems like we are getting rate cuts in September, but that hasn't happened yet. So,
Right.
there's
Yeah.
still more liquidity to come that we are not seeing yet in the actual charts. So
Exactly.
that's something to keep
Exactly.
in mind as well. This is an oldie, but a goodie, I guess. John San was wondering if we could take a look at the chart of Polkadot, which I saw on the market cap website was down on the day. It was in
It
the
it's
red.
it is red. Yeah. Well, and in fact, it's been red for a long time. So let's take a look at Polkadot. Let me kind of zoom out here. I think it's important to look at something like Polkadot on a weekly time frame, because we can see here that by and large, it's been in a extended downtrend. I mean, since the peak, yes, it has had a couple of periods of outperformance in both in Q4 of 2023 and 2024. It had big runs, where it went from around $3 or $4 up to $8 or $9. So a 3x, it'll run up into a 3x, but then basically it just gives it all right back. And then it did another kind of 3x, and then it went on to set even lower lows, kind of new all-time lows, and it's been just hovering since then. And then more importantly, I think what I'm focusing on is just starting from like this year forward, so year to date. We had the big peak at the end of Q4 last year. And then when the market bottomed, most of the market bottomed in April at this low here, right here. And all of the things that went on to outperform reestablished new uptrends at this point. But we can see Polkadot didn't really do that. If we look at kind of this bull market support band, this clouded moving average here, we can see that really price kind of bounced, it got rejected off of this band and went on to set lower lows. And here it kind of poked above it for a second, but it was really more of like a false break. And then it, broke down again. Now you could argue, yes, it's setting higher lows at this point. So possibly the bottom was in on this week of June 16th, but it hasn't really gone on to flip this band green like Nico, like you just mentioned. So on a weekly time frame, it's not in an uptrend yet, and it's really struggling to establish an uptrend. It's not like it has broken out and set higher highs or anything. So it's not tracking with the rest of the market overall. I would say it's underperforming the rest of the market. I would consider this even to be a bit of a below average looking chart. So I'm not loving Polkadot at the moment. And then honestly, if even more so, if you kind of look at it against Bitcoin, it's even worse. It's just kind of like drastic, steady down. I mean, down only, like literally, like. And so it's like, if you look at this, you really have to ask yourself, why be in this just hold Bitcoin? I mean, you're literally 10 times better off just holding Bitcoin than holding DOT right now. And so why incur that extra risk and that extra volatility, by doing this when it's not even, outpacing the class benchmark basically, and hasn't been doing that since really the peak of the previous 4-year cycle. I mean, and just to kind of put a finer point on it real quick, like since the peak, it's down 96% against Bitcoin right now. So
Yeah.
that's pretty stark. And so really, again, there's just no reason to be in this asset, and there's no reason to think, well, maybe this is the bottom and it's finally going to reverse, because you could have said that here, you could have said that here, you could have said that here, and it just can't seem to really break out and reestablish an uptrend against Bitcoin. So I just see no
Yeah.
reason to hold DOT.
I'm with you, Kris, especially after all of this time. I mean, DOT was definitely a hot altcoin back in the last cycle, and it's had a ton of time, obviously. It's been 4 years since then, and
Yeah,
nothing has seemingly changed over there,
right.
including the tech. It seems very much like SWE is eating their lunch to a certain degree.
I have
So,
to agree. Yeah, for sure, for
um,
sure.
already, we got a question from Jorge. So from Polkadot, we're going to move to Aave. Jorge wants to know, do you think DeFi will get a new wave with older assets like Aave? Aave definitely
Um,
a different deal than Polkadot at the end of the
yeah,
day.
I do. I do. I think Aave is actually a pretty solid bet right now, and I do agree with that DeFi thesis. I think that legacy, not all legacy DeFi, but Aave in particular is outpacing because Aave is like it has the highest TVL, I think, of any one of the top highest TVLs of any DeFi project out there. It's by far and away a sort of class leader in terms of its tech stack and in terms of its performance, and Aave is not going anywhere, and so at the same time, I don't know that I see Aave doing a 10x from here. So it's kind of like you have to ask yourself what your sort of desired outcome, what your goal is with investing in Aave. Sure, it's going to be a good project. Sure, it's going to make money. I think it's maybe, and I kind of touched on this on a Monday show too, but it's a good example of a kind of an anchor asset in a portfolio that you might hold to sort of temper the volatility. Like we know that it's going to go up. We know that it's going to be a reliable, steady gainer. We know that it's going to be a pretty safe investment, but also at the same time, it's not going to be blowing everything away. It's not going to be the home run swing. So you would put that in there to kind of just act as an anchor to kind of mute some of your volatility and take a little bit of money and put it further out the risk curve. But yeah, obviously a good one for that. And yeah, again, it's not going anywhere. It's solid.
All right. I know you wanted to take a look at Rekt. Let's do that
Yeah,
because
yeah, we got.
I took your advice, right? It wasn't advice, but I saw your analysis a couple weeks ago on lo-fi and decided to rotate all of lo-fi into Rekt. So very intrigued what you're thinking here.
So yeah, let's take a look at Rekt. It's had a bit of a wobble for sure. It was doing well. It was kind of blowing everything away. It definitely has retraced more than most over the last couple of weeks. It's had a bigger correction. You could argue that's somewhat due in part to the fact that it kind of was so far overextended to begin with. It was, it got pretty overbought. And so it's going to generally, when things get so overbought or so extended above their, say, 20-day moving average, they're generally going to correct more than others might. And this is no exception. But we can see at this point, we're starting to see a number of signals suggesting that it's oversold now. We have like a DMARC 13 indicator here. We've got these bullish divergence indications flagging, saying that there's multiple bullish divergences happening here. So definitely Rekt is oversold at this point and is likely due a bit of a bounce. Now, where it goes, I think, remains to be seen. We had a support level here that I had identified the other day on a previous show talking about that it actually has lost. I'd like to see it for sure reclaim this support level, which I think is likely to happen. And I think the most important thing here is it's still well above its 20-week moving average. It's still well above its bull market support band. And so it's still the uptrend is still well intact despite this larger than normal correction that it had, this sort of outsized correction. The uptrend is still well intact. And if we look at it on the weekly time frame real quick too, we can see that it really is just kind of came back down and touched perfectly on its 10-week moving average, wicked below it slightly, is holding support right at it perfectly. This is very common for sort of a quote larger correction to be a perfect touch on either the 10-week and sometimes even the 20-week moving average, and then a bounce from there. And so to me, this looks really clean. Like I look at this weekly chart, I don't see a problem at all with this. Like it's totally normal. It did this here earlier. It had a wobble, came back down, touched its 10-week moving average perfectly, ran back up for another stretch. Again, came back down, touched its 10-week moving average perfectly, and we're likely juicing up for another run. So overall, I think Rekt looks good. We know fundamentally they're crushing it. They just had another drink launch that sold out within like a minute, I think, on the actual project side. So they're doing well. I'm not worried about Rekt at all. I think the chart looks good. I think it just got a little bit over its skis. We can see there's this huge gap here, kind of just like a huge gap here, and so not surprised to see this. But overall, I think Rekt looks good.
Love it. Next up, the chat wants to know about Cronos, Cronos.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I've been a little bit out of pocket, so I'm not super up to speed, but I saw a headline. I think that um, what is it? The Trump world. Somehow Trump got involved and bought a bunch of Cronos. I know I'm totally butchering that. It
But
literally
no,
just was, yeah.
that's
It
the
was
world we
like,
live in now.
it was a headline I saw flash across my phone as I was walking through the airport yesterday. So forgive me for missing all the detail here, but I think it was something along those lines. And obviously we're seeing that reflected in the chart. For all I know, this green candle was the buy of them actually buying into it, and isn't like a broader sort of reflection of broad-based buying. So I would be a little wary of this, because it could just be this. It could give most of this back. Typically, when you see giant candles like this with mega huge outsized volume out of nowhere, 9 times out of 10, it's going to give half of this back at least. And so don't go chasing this. It would be my first thought. What this means in terms of like the longer term future of Cronos, I have no idea. I know crypto.com as an exchange, they're not killing it, I guess, to to be blunt. And so I'm curious to see what the motivation here is, or what's going to happen as a result of this sort of interaction with the Trump world. But I don't think it's Trump. It's not like Trump the president. It's like Trump's kids, like,
Yep.
and the whatever's going on with them.
Yep.
They bought a bunch of crow, and so that's what we're seeing here. Is that?
I love that it's Crow.
Yeah.
I really appreciate who decided to land on that one. The other
Yeah.
one that the chat is buzzing about is Sweet, which I believe we touched on briefly up top.
Yeah.
But obviously, it is also in the midst of its pullback at the moment, and was one of the few in the red of the top 20.
It was, yeah. It too has had a bit of a wobble. It's not keeping pace with the likes of Solana, but at the same time, I think with Sui, again, it's just you got to zoom out a little bit, because hold on, let me kind of reshape this. What we're seeing here is just this big upward, sort of wedge pattern that is continuing to set higher lows. And yeah, it did break down just a tick, but I still think a breakout is imminent. I still think that it's going to be there in the end. It's still in an uptrend overall. Yes, it's like the bull market support band. One of those two moving average did kind of flatten out, but it's still above its 20-week moving average. It's still kind of right at its 10-week moving average, if not slightly below it. It's not much of a wobble. I'm not worried about it. I think it's fine. And I think that it's still going to bounce in the sooner rather than later. So I'm holding it. I still have it in the model portfolio that I do for Real Vision, and I don't plan on removing it anytime soon. Like I said, I still think that ultimately, I wouldn't even be surprised if it ultimately outperformed Solana when it's all said and done. So even though it's Solana's kind of killing it at the moment, I still think that Sui will be in the conversation, just because its market cap is so much lower than Solana. It just has so much more room to go to the upside, and it takes so much less inflows to move the needle. And so just mathematically, it's going to be so much easier for it to run once it finally does.
I totally feel you on that. Another one the chat wanted to look at was SPX, believe it or not. We can't go 1 week without mentioning it at least once.
Well, yeah. So let's see. Let's take a look at SPS real quick. I know the community is going to kill me for pulling up a chart, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But just really, yeah, it too has had a wobble. I'm going to kind of put it in the same category as Rekt, in terms of it got a little bit over its skis too. And it's been just so solidly outperforming everything for so long, and it's just been grinding up, that it was ultimately due a bit of a correction, which I think we had here. I know some wallets got hacked, a bunch of wallets got hacked, and so there was some outsized selling to the downside. There was some liquidations that happened that caused some selling. So this is a little bit artificial, and I wouldn't really put any weight on it. And I know, again, if you're in the SPX community, there is no chart. I fully get it, but yeah, I'm not worried about this, because there is no chart. So I think SPX is still there. I think it just had some artificial selling to the downside, and so it's yeah, not a big deal.
And the other one the chat was curious about, and I know it's not your favorite, was XRP.
Yeah,
What's going on
again,
with our
XRP.
current XRP? I haven't looked at it recently. Oh.
XRP is absolutely in the conversation. It's in that top 10 category that's outperforming the rest of the market. It's, it's above its 10-week moving average. It's well above its bull market support band. It's in a nice steady uptrend. It's holding up better than, pretty much everything outside the top 10. So it fits into that chunk that I listed at the top of the show, in that this is where the money is going right now. And that's why XRP is, yes, it's down a little bit, but it's really strong. I mean, ultimately, compared to a lot of stuff right now.
Love it. Got another one from the chat. Toshi.
Toshi.
Toshi. It is let me get this. It's the meme coin named after Coinbase's CEO Brian Armstrong's cat.
Okay.
I guess you could say it's the #1 base meme with a huge community support.
It's got a nice groove here. Here's the April lows. It bottomed. Granted, it hadn't been around for very long, but it bottomed in April when everything else did, and has gone on to set a nice steady uptrend since then. Yeah, not gonna lie, I like it. It's not like blowing everything away. It's not the star of the market at the moment, but it's steady grinding. It's in an uptrend. It's doing better than most. It's certainly above average. I'll say that. So I think if you're holding Toshi, keep holding Toshi. Like, keep riding that wave, because I think it looks good. It did set a high here and a slightly lower high here, but I think in general, it's holding up well. It didn't roll over. Again, it's above its 10-week moving average too. So nothing really bad to say about it, honestly.
Interesting. Who would have thunk? I swore you were going to take a look at that chart and be like, nope, 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 nope. We're almost out of time, Kris. Any final charts you wanted to highlight before we get going?
Well, let's see. There's a couple others that were doing well that I called out on Monday that have had a bit of a breakdown. So I wanted to talk about Kita here. Kita was another one of those that had just been, I had a nice trend line drawn here, and it was just crushing it for a long time. On Monday, it had just poked below it a little bit, and then over the last couple of days, it just kept going. But we can see here's the bull market support band, and it's kind of right in line with it. So yeah, it's below its 10-week moving average, but it's still not below its 20. And I think more importantly, the volume is just continuing to be super strong with this. And I think ultimately this, to me, is a buying opportunity more than anything. Like, I don't see this asset ultimately rolling over too much, not with the amount of attention it has right now, and not with like the partnerships that they're announcing and the work they're doing behind the scenes. I think that this one is going to continue to do well. So I'm looking at this as a bit of a buying opportunity. And then another one that I called out on Monday that I wanted to kind of check in on. Well, there was Troll, that also I feel like is a buying opportunity a little bit. It kind of rolled over a little bit more than I thought it would, but it's also holding a really, really strong trend, as we can see. And I think that this is only going to run. And then there was another one finally, I can't find it. I got too many things on my stupid watch list here. Nobody was the other one. Nobody is the other one that's really continuing to defy the odds for me. Like, I thought this one was dead at this point. I thought, and again, I thought it was dead here, and then it just keeps bouncing on this trend line, and it's got this amazing wedge pattern that it had formed, and then it just blew up and broke out. And even right now, it's only down just a little bit off of its all-time high, and just continues to show a ton of strength. And so, again, despite the odds, this one won't die, and it keeps holding people's attention, and it keeps running up, and it keeps setting higher highs, and this wedge pattern is just awesome looking, and this breakout, I think, is not something to be faded. So I really like the look of Nobody at the moment.
What a world we live in. Nobody's sausage, and we're treating it with DeMark indicators. Who'd have thunk?
Go
Kris,
figure.
we unfortunately are out of time, but I should remind everybody about the Connect campaign. If you're just a free user, now's a perfect time to join Real Vision's Connect tier. There is currently a campaign going on. Go to realvision.com/ready set connect for some nice discounts, and you'll get access to Kris's portfolio, Joe Bland's, and Kris's TA show he does exclusively for members every Monday. Kris, it is always a pleasure when Bijan goes on vacation and I get to sit in on this with you. We're glad to have you back from your travels, and we'll do this again next week. Thanks for watching,
Excellent.
everybody.